A nutrient deficiency is at the core of it, and it makes total sense if you understood a little bit about how the brain works and a little bit about how neurotransmitters are made and the cofactors that are needed in these enzymatic conversions of things, of taking amino acids into amino acid structures, what you need. When do you need vitamin C? When do you need zinc? When do you need copper? When do you need B6? When do you need B12? If you understood that, and you're like, oh, okay. Step one, we need enough protein. Clearly, it's all amino acids. Let's just make sure we have enough of those in the body. Amino acids are the little building blocks that make up all the proteins. It's really hard to get enough amino acids on a plant-based diet. But pro tip number one, you want good mental health? You want your kids not to have ADHD? Don't you dare let them become a vegetarian. So I had a reel a little while ago that maybe when I save the video, I can copy the link or something like that. But I have a short reel down where I'm wearing like a orange sweatshirt, and it says, I talk about ADHD, right? And I gave some numbers. My dog is probably going to be a big pain because he's hungry, but it's not time to eat yet. Pookie, not time. Come here. Yeah, come here. You want to have a cameo? Come here. You need a cameo. Come here. My Pookie. Y'all know my Pookie. Okay. He's a good camera prop. So I gave some stats in there. I talked about ADHD as a diagnosis. It's a very sloppy, vague diagnosis. There's no real science that goes into it as far as the standard of care for what a psychiatrist or even a GP can diagnose. Requires no testing, requires no labs. They don't do anything. It's a bunch of checklists from a bunch of other people. You don't even need the child to say much. And you can get a diagnosis and a prescription for typically addictive drugs that you will attenuate to. So you will become, the dose will need to be increased over time. That is the nature of this classification of drugs. Ritalin in and of itself is the most popular street drug in high school and college. That's how high it can get you and how much it can impact brain function that they sell it to. It is the most popular street drug. They typically crush it and snort it. If you didn't know that and your kid is on it, make sure you're checking and counting and tracking them pills, okay? That's for a number of reasons, the normalization of competition and excessive homework and studying and grades and external modifications. They feel like they have to basically cheat to get into Ivy League and all this nonsense that we've done to basically take the joy and fun out of childhood, So I call bullshit on all that, but that's not really what this is about. It's a follow-up to some of the questions. So if you have any specific questions about ADHD, feel free to write them in, but I'm going to go right to that post and just read a little bit. So I gave some information about the biochemistry of what can go into what causes the symptoms that we classify or eventually give somebody an ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder diagnosis. The diagnosis is ADHD. Now there is no more CPT code for ADD. So people say, oh, I have ADD. I'm not ADHD, I'm ADD. Well, Pumpkin, you are, according to a CP code, ADHD now. ADD has been eliminated. Doesn't mean it's accurate. It just means they clumped it together and they say you can be primarily inattentive, primarily hyperactive, or you can be a combination. So they just changed the code and your doctor cannot prescribe you or code you, diagnose you with ADD anymore. It would be ADHD, primarily inattentive type, okay? All right, goodbye, Pookies. Let's try to calm it down. I gave some stats such that let's look at it at a deeper level, because at least 100 other neurological disorders or nutrient deficiencies can look like ADHD, and they're just classifying things in one big lump and not taking any specificity to actually get to any kind of root cause. Even, I don't care if in a perfect world you're going to use some type of external medication, let's say, you should at least look and know the difference and do it accurately. But they're often diagnosing thyroid disorders with ADHD. They're often diagnosing hyperactivity, anxiety as ADHD. So there's nothing worse than giving an anxious child methamphetamine stimulants. That's a shit show waiting to happen, and it happens all the time. So because they don't do anything, they can't discriminate when things look very much the same. I come from the school of thinking, studying orthomolecular psychiatry, which is a very unique, very small niche in the functional medicine group. In the functional medicine world, orthomolecular psychiatry is way over here with a small group of wackadoodles that look at it. And this small group of people don't necessarily agree with the other functional people. And a lot of these functional people look at these people and think, we're even a little bit crazy because they've never studied it. They don't deal with it. The majority of their patients are not bipolar, schizophrenic, dissociative, suicidal, PTSD, ADHD. It's not what they deal with really. So they don't go down that rabbit hole enough and they're not that passionate about it. So they don't know much about it. So I don't really understand why people have opinions about things they know nothing about. If you ask me about quilting, I got no fucking opinions. I don't know how to do it. You know how to do it. You're the expert in the room. I'm not going to give an opinion. I'm assuming what you're doing is right every time. I don't know about it. I can't criticize. Stuns me, however, in the healthcare field. People might know, you might know how to remove a gallbladder brilliantly. I don't do that. But sure enough, they have a big opinion about all kinds of things they don't know anything about. Find it fascinating. But it's not helping anybody. Okay? So let's go over some of this. Some of these things I said, some of the biochemical things you can see that can lead to an ADHD diagnosis. Then if you correct it, then it's an imbalance in the system that's creating the symptoms from a deeper imbalance. If you correct the imbalance, the symptoms go away. It's that simple, right? But you got to know what the imbalance is and what you're looking at. Things like such, I gave you an idea, like 96% of everybody with an ADHD diagnosis is zinc deficient. Sure seems like zinc might be really important. Sure seems like zinc may play a really big part in what looks like ADHD, okay? 96% of all of them have this. Now, is supplementing with zinc going to be a miracle cure for everybody and makes it all go away? Nope. But will it do it for a lot of people to get their zinc in balance and suddenly everything's better? Yep. That's just letting you know deficiency. A nutrient deficiency is at the core of it, and it makes total sense if you understood a little bit about how the brain works and a little bit about how neurotransmitters are made and the cofactors that are needed in these enzymatic conversions of things, of taking amino acids into other, like amino acid structures, what you need. When do you need vitamin C? When do you need zinc? When do you need copper? When do you need B6? When do you need B12? If you understood that, and you're like, oh, okay. Step one, we need enough protein. Clearly, it's all amino acids. So let's just make sure we have enough of those in the body. Amino acids are the little building blocks that make up all the proteins. It's really hard to get enough amino acids on a plant-based diet. But pro tip number one, you want good mental health? You want your kids not to have ADHD? Don't you dare let them become a vegetarian. And tell the schools with their meatless Mondays, they can shove it up their USDA guidelines dumbasses. Okay, great. Because they consider pizza a balanced meal because ketchup and tomato sauce is a vegetable. Oh. Yet these are the geniuses in charge of school and in charge of the menu and in charge of everything. Yeah. Pizza. Oh, and mac and cheese. That's a, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Where Heinz ketchup is a vegetable. I mean, Mountain Dew is green. I guess that's fucking broccoli now. I don't know. Anyway, I swore, get over it. So it's the end of the night. It's free. You don't like it, turn the channel. It's free. Free. I'm going to say that too. It's free. I don't really like a lot of criticism when I'm doing free shit. It gets so old. All right. Out of that too, 68% of them ADHD diagnosed people are copper toxic. Copper excess, you heard to say. Zinc and copper have a ratio together. Most things in the body are coupled systems. The entire universe, the entire planet, it's a coupled system, right? What does that mean? Light and dark, oxygen, carbon dioxide, cows eat grass, we eat cows, plants turn our waste into oxygen. we do things together. The thyroid and the adrenals back there, they work together, gas and brake. You start stressing the thyroid, your adrenals will be stressed. You start I knocked things, sorry. You start stressing your adrenals, your thyroid will break down eventually. Okay? That's how it works. And there's nothing working by itself. Sorry, I'm moving things. It did get worse with the Michelle Obama thing. You know, that all sounded lovely. It did. She actually did this whole thing of reducing calories so bad because it got stuck on calories. So now kids are being starved with low calorie as well. So they're taking away protein because it's cheap. Why? Because they want to save money to put in their own pockets because they're greedy, lying, nasty, evil people. I mean, I don't get it. Starve children so you can get a bigger salary. You're evil. But yeah, Michelle Obama's thing did a big thing because they were stuck on losing weight and they focused on calories. So now you got kids who barely, in the poorest districts, they're not getting enough food to begin with. So it's bad enough you want to give them oatmeal or it's cornflakes for breakfast. I don't think that's nutritious, but it's better they have some, at least calories for some energy. So then they went low calorie, which then we know people, if you starve people, they're going to rebound and like binge eat. It never works out. It just increases your appetite. It doesn't work. Anyway, let me go over those numbers real fast. 68% copper toxic. People are asking about that. I'll explain a little bit, I think. 92% have low ceruloplasmin. Ceruloplasmin is related to that copper-zinc situation. It's a protein that basically carries around copper, and you need enough of it so the copper isn't loose and wild. You don't want loose. It kind of acts like a discharging electrical heavy metal when it's loose. Like iron, too much iron, you guys, will kill you too. It'll kill your liver. It's very dangerous. So these metals, you need iron. We all know we need it. We need copper. But if you have too much and it's unbound, we call it. So it's unbound, not going around. That will jack you up in many, many, many ways. High copper, unbound, not all through the that'll make you can have hallucinations and be psychotic from it. Okay, very common in schizophrenia, very common in psychosis, very common in postpartum depression. Happens a lot with women because the birth control pill is involved with that. Estrogen rides with copper. But all that to say, when zinc gets low, copper will often go high. Okay, not always, but that's usually going to go together because there's a ratio of how these things work. If we get copper, depleted, zinc is going to get too high. People talk about low copper. I have yet never seen a low copper patient. Now, again, I specialize in mental health issues, brain issues. So people are coming to me for ADHD and panic and depression and psychosis and schizophrenia and all bipolar. They have these diagnoses typically. I don't see low copper ever. I always see high copper. Doesn't mean low copper doesn't exist. I'm seeing a lot of that in socials. I'm like, I don't ever see people with low copper, so I'm not. But that's not, autism. I have a very unique patient base. I don't see people. I don't see a bunch of Navy SEALs who are just trying to do an ultra marathon. That's not who comes to me. Pookie, it's not time. Okay. The other thing I said, about 55% of people with ADHD have a methylation issue, a functional methylation disorder. That is not the same as having a genetic SNP. We have got to start getting out of this fantasy world that just because you have a genetic SNP, you are programmed or destined to something. I am not a believer in that, Flossie. It's a very Western medicine way of thinking. So you have physicians who've gone functional, which is great. I love it. Bravo. But they still bring their very mechanistic thinking of here's a symptom, here's a drug, here's a symptom, here's a drug, here's a symptom, here's a drug. I mean, that's been their brainwashing for 10, 20 years. Or here's the thing, cut it out. Here's the thing, better yet. I mean, and a surgeon just wants to cut you open because that's just fun to them. They're like, fuck, there's another one in? Trauma! Awesome! Cut it, let's do it. I mean, they don't want to sit around and talk vitamins because that's their surgeons. It's a very rare bird that's like, oh shit, I could probably change this and not operate so much. That's a Sean Baker, that's a Jack Cruz. They're out there. Cindy Hall, my friend, is a surgeon. They're like, oh, maybe we should change this up a little bit. So we're probably doing some unnecessary surgeries. Let's talk about it. Anyway, with the genetics, some of them are just a little, I think medicine is taking the wrong approach of thinking, here, let's look at your genetics. Now let me prescribe to you based on your probability, what supplements you're supposed to take and how you're supposed to eat and how you're supposed to exercise. I have not seen that work out in the functional space as well. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been trained by lots of geneticists. I've run lots of genetic panels. I don't see them pan out functionally the way they all say they're going to be. I just haven't. It's a guide. It helps drive, like this is a probability. But there are 40,000 other gene combinations interacting with that one MTHFR and that one COMT and that one. I mean, this is ridiculous to think your functional status comes down to a couple genetics variants. Like, what? And you got, I don't know, 300 billion trillion of these genetic SNPs in your intestine, and you make exosomes, which are other basically RNA virus. We don't know what a damn exosome or a virus really is. Communication particles going in and talking and changing things, and we're using code. When we have a ridiculously low amount of genetic material in the human system, we have mitochondrial DNA we're using, we have all this other bacterial DNA we're using. We slice and dice things all the time. And you cannot tell me for 1 minute the body doesn't have many backup systems to make methylation work when you have some genetic SNPs. It's nonsense. So I've done the genetic testing for 20 years on people, trained going first with autism with my nephew, but with PhD geneticists and Dan doctors going after this. And it does tell us a lot of probability. There are a lot of things that go, you probably shouldn't like jibby jab that kid too much because they're probably going to become autistic because they can't probably detoxify. Oh, Pookie. He unplugged my computer. Let's see where my power is. We're good. Because I want to read some of the things. All right. There's some explaining things. All right. So genetics are just a probability. You need to do actual functional labs to see. Well, I don't care. I will tell you, I've had many patients. Their genetics say they should not be able to methylate. They shouldn't be doing it. And so we just assume. And then you look at their functional stuff. You're like, yeah, so you're fine. You don't need 18,000 extra supplements. And in fact, what people do is they'll do a genetic test. They'll know no functional information of where their actual status is. They don't where they actually are. It's like kind of like when people say, how much vitamin D should I take? You should take none. The answer is 0. But what's your blood level? You should be in the sun and you should be making it. Now, if you should take some extra, I don't know. What's your blood test? Go get me a test. And you go, oh, it's 80. I'm like, you should take none. And you go, oh, it's 17. I'm like, well, damn. I guess we'll take some initially while I teach you how to change your behaviors so you can make it yourself. Because it's not good to take it. But people will just take it without knowing any numbers. They have no idea. They go, I don't know. My doctor, that level is hit. My doctor wouldn't test for it. I'm like, Pumpkin, you can go get it yourself. It's like $30. Like, seriously? If you're waiting for the doctor to approve you, to tell you, good little girl, you can have a vitamin D test? No. That's not how you're never going to get healthy. Okay? So, back to that. So, they haven't taken any tests, but somebody told them that, I have MTHFR. It means I can't process folate. So, I have to take a vitamin. Really? And then what they do is dump themselves in the opposite spectrum, and now they're over methylating. They got a whole nother set of problems. They got a whole nother set of problems. I'm like, oh shit. Like, you're just taking SAMe because why? I don't know, I heard it was good for me. I heard I should take SAMe if you're stressed. I'm like, oh my God, did you look at your homocysteine? Because with this high-ass homocysteine, you've just jacked up and jammed up the whole methylation process and made it even worse. You can't take methionine or SAMe if you got a high homocysteine. I don't give a shit what's going on. We have to fix it all first before we do that. That's why it takes time, and you should have tests. Okay, this is enough of that rant. And about 30% have a disorder called pyrrole disorder. Pyrrole disorder is the thing I mentioned where it's an inflammatory oxidative stress disorder where the red blood cells are basically ripping apart too fast, and these little red blood cells, as they break into piece, they grab B6 and zinc a lot, and they actually grab an omega-6. And so pyrrole disorder, ADHD looking people have a totally different omega-6, omega-3 need. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is about omega-3 supplementation. I'm going to tell you right now, just clinically, I don't give a shit what the studies say. I'm going to tell you in practice, in my practice in 25 years, and working with other doctors in their practices, being trained and mentored under many other doctors, physicians, orthomolecular psychiatrists, looking at their thousands of patients, I have never, ever, I don't give a damn what Dr. Amen says. I have never, ever, ever, ever seen a child have ADHD improvements taking omega-3 supplements. Never. I thought it was supposed to work. I thought that's the big thing. And in fact, if you give your kid omega-3s and they actually have a pyrrole disorder, you're going to make the whole thing worse. Because that one group of people actually has an way too high omega-3 and way too low omega-6. What? But I heard everybody had too much omega-6 in the diet. Oh my God. I know, you hear things. It doesn't mean it's true. You need to run labs. You need a professional. Okay? Please, for the love of God, I hope that's what you're hearing. And there are thousands of us, not just me. Okay? So in that situation, I would do a whole combination of supplements based upon labs, and omega-3s would not be in that equation for that child or adult. They would be getting evening primrose oil because I'm bringing inflammation down with that. So you really need to kind of know what you're doing and do some testing. But people are asking about that, like, oh, what about dosing? I dose based on blood tests. I dose based on the labs. I don't know. I have some starting points based on age, body size, but I might be 25 milligrams of this for one person. I might be 100 milligrams for this. I might be 200 milligrams on that. I mean, it's so varied based on you, your situation, your biochemical and your biology, and yes, your genetics and your epigenetics. That all goes into the picture of what are we looking at, all right? Yeah, test don't guess for a lot of things. Many things we can know. I'm going to tell you, like, so a good clinician, with my interview for Dr. Cindy Hall, if you heard her, she's like, the patient tells you the problem. Like, you just have to learn to listen, like, oh, they're telling you what it is. Now, you might not know exactly. The doctor will be like, well, this is definitely a thyroid disorder. Like, I have seen this thing way too long. Now, they don't know if you need 3 grains of NP thyroid or 1 maybe or 2, but they're gonna know. Like, oh yeah. Like typically a pyrrole disorder is very obvious to a clinician trained in this way based on our history and intake and the questions we ask and the one we go through. We're like, yeah. I usually just go, look, mama, I know that this is part of the equation. I can tell you, I'm going to start you on the treatment right now. Why wait? It's going to take me 2 or 3 weeks to get that lab back. It's not 100% accurate, but you couple tests with what you're seeing. Test in and of itself, it's like, if you go, well, that doesn't make any sense. How is that negative or how is that positive? I don't understand. Because I'm looking at it and this doesn't make any sense. Redo it, run a different version. Like, I need to know more information, right? You can run an x-ray and go, doesn't look broken, but on physical exam, that shit sure seems broken. And you run it from a different angle or a CT, I need a different image. Get me another thing. You're like, oh shit, it is broken. The angle, x-rays aren't even always accurate, you guys. You can miss broken bones. You can miss tumors. So if that can be just based on angle and the settings, labs aren't always 100%. You gotta look at the whole picture, okay? So anyway, I can treat a pyrrole disorder without knowing. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this is what it is. And I can tell by the response. I'm like, go do this. And some people within 2-3 days are like, what? I'm like, okay, I know I'm right. Might take a week or two with somebody else. So that being said, those are the things involved, like common things with ADHD based on a small group of functional medicine, an approach to look at it. There's many other things. This is a foundational way. Obviously, you want to start with diet, but some people do have genetic or family epigenetic circumstances that they have a much higher need for certain nutrients than other people. And they probably can't get it from the diet. And so we use the nutrients in a prescriptive manner, very much in a formula custom to that person's needs. It might be for a short period of time and we get everything under balance, or they may have such strong genetic and structural inborn tendencies or something that's kind of a prescription they kind of got to be on. And if they're on that, they don't ever need any other drugs because the nutrients give them the balance they need. And whether that's coming from an accumulation of things of the levels of magnetic poisoning we're under, the level of Wi-Fi from 3G to 4G to 5G, there's already some 6G, Bluetooth. These kids, I wasn't exposed to any of this as a child, right? It's getting obscene, the amount of smart meters and radiation and poisoning electrical conduction on a person's home, on their body, devices. So They're probably being depleted more than ever, just from an electromagnetic frequency standpoint. They're being more poisoned than ever with, gimme. The schedule that I experience is nothing that if somebody is doing that standard schedule today. So you're just being poisoned after poisoned. Those are all influencing the gene code, right? That's an epigenetic thing, and not more inflammation and stuff like that. So those are some basics. I kind of said a lot in there already. Yeah, I'm going to save it. It's just kind of a off the cuff. Let me see if anybody has Dan Purser. I don't know who Dan Purser is. I'm going to write that down. He might be trained in the same stuff as me. If you want, so Abram Hoffer. Let me just say a name. Dr. Abram Hoffer. I swear, I'm in perimenopause because I could cry right now. Because that man, everybody should know his name. Canadian psychiatrist who basically at the end of his career was like, I'm not having your bullshit. Find any videos of this man. You want to see character? You want to see strength? You want to see chutzpah? He wasn't having it. And he said the word you never should say. You can cure it. I've cured bipolar. I've cured schizophrenia. I've cured it. Pookie, what are you doing? You all right? The dog is doing some crazy things. I don't know. I'm gonna get one of his little toys. Maybe he needs a binky. Give your little toy, Pookie. I don't know where it is. It's acting weird. When he does that, it makes me think like Zero. What you doing, Pookie? I have a lot of creatures in my house, like lots of animals. Somebody here? What are you doing? I always listen to what animals are telling me because they see things we don't, So anyway, I don't know exactly what's happening, but yeah, I have like coyotes and hawks and owls and things. Sometimes there's coyote tracks in my backyard. I was like, oh. And they would eat my Pookie, so I have to be careful about all that. All right, let me see. So somebody asked a question. I'm sorry, Dan Purser. I'm going to write that down and look up who that is. Your naturopath doesn't know about vitamin D. I doubt that. What do you mean your vitamin? It doesn't know about vitamin D. Like taking it exogenously will shut down your own body's mechanisms, but I will put a person on it, you guys. I'm not comfortable with a 75-year-old black person in Detroit in the winter having a vitamin D of 17 or 30 even. Like, I'm going to supplement them. They can't get it. They're not going to get it any other way. If I can convince them to buy a Spurdy lamp, great. You can go to my store, save money. I have a code and all the things. But, I have a hard time getting dark people to get into the sun. I'm just going to tell the truth. It's hard. And like people like my mother won't do it. So I supplement her. She's 76. I'm like, oh, you have to take it. She gets out when she can, but they're not doing it. I can only do so much. So it's not the best way, but I'll give it before I won't give it. I'll tell you that. You run the gamut of drugs for 15 years. So let me also say this. This is related to ADHD. One of my favorite genetic tests is I use Genomind. Genomind is a genetic test. I've gone through many genetic test companies, and I keep coming back to them as the most helpful, again, for what I do. I am not getting people who are like just trying to be pretty and lose 10 pounds and peak perform themselves. That's just not usually what I see, okay? So Genomind is a genetic test very much designed around drugs. So I can still see MTHFR, COMT, all kinds of things about stuff, but it's very much related to psychiatric cases. And I get the additional information of medications and what drugs run through things. So I can tell What are the variants? Like, is this person a fast metabolizer? Are they going to have very low serum levels of any drug that runs through this, CYP variant? Are they going to have very slow, meaning you have to low dose that person? They're going to have a very dramatic response because they can't process anything very well. And this includes supplements. I can tell, okay, how's marijuana going to respond with this person and coupled with drugs and alcohol? Are opioids, is it going to work on them? Are they going to become an addict? Are SSRIs safe for this person, or is an SNRI a better choice? And you have the data as to why. It's all very research based, and I find it to be the most helpful thing for me. So I'm a Gentle Mind practitioner. We order, that's a lab I order, but if you can also go to their website and try to find a doctor that uses something like that. You have to understand, psychiatrists are not trained to test anything. It's the one, like, Rockefeller medicine thing, they test nothing. They don't run genetic tests, they don't run blood tests, they don't run urine tests, they don't run hair tests, they don't run brain images. They don't do that. It's listen to some symptoms and here's the drug that corresponds. That's it. So if you can find a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychiatrist, and yet I have to clean up their messes, so it is what it is. I'm not waiting for permission to be helpful. So I test my patients for all of this. But if you can find somebody on the Gentle Mind website, you might find a good clinician but I do them too. So that's something like that might help you at least be on the right medications, and you can learn things and teach things where you can say, oh, look at mama, look at this kid. Let me explain something to you about her. I get we have ADHD diagnosis. It's pretty accurate. I have the brain image to back it up. I see the nutrient deficiencies. Let's approach it from electromagnetic standpoint. Let me fix the brainwave dysregulation while I fix the nutrients, while I heal the gut, while the whole system can get in balance and everything can be in synchrony again, and there can be a symphony of function. So attention and concentration are very easy. Impulse control is very easy. But here's the thing you need to know about your kid and this genetic thing. Your kid is going to have a 3 times stronger response to physical exercise and activity than somebody else with the same issue. Therefore, never ever punish this child by taking her sports away. Never ever do that. I don't care if she's failing. She can't stop running track, playing basketball, boxing, and in fact, you should get her into boxing and Muay Thai, because this kid is what she really should do, because she's angry too. Let her kick somebody in the face a few times. She'll be a better student for it. Stop trying to soften her up. These kids must have now, somebody else, you go, well, exercise is good for you, but it's not going to give you that 3 times super hit. You're not going to feel this massive attention increase, but you need to do it. These other people, you cannot stop playing sports. So because people stop often at high school and college, and they don't do it anymore. But I say this is like a prescriptive thing for you. And you could look at somebody and say, oh, look at this genetics. Oh yeah. They're going to have 3 times more likely to have a massive cortisol surge to stress. 3 times more likely to have PTSD, to have adrenal burnout, to have high cortisol spikes, like they're overreactive. We know it, we can see it. Here's the nutrients I can use to calm that down. Here's the things I can use to address the epigenetics, to talk to that gene code, to get it to soothe it, while I give her some ashwagandha, some other stuff. She needs more. She needs phosphatidylcholine like nobody's business. They need tons of it. Give her 3 times the amount of phosphatidylcholine you'd give somebody else. That you can tell. Then you can say, and on top of it, these are the medications that are the safest, and these are the medications you must avoid on that patient. Okay? So sometimes it comes in as simply we're moving the drugs around, like, all right, let's at least medicate you properly, safer, so we're more effective and in a better dose, while we then see if we can regulate and heal the system to get you off of them. There is no ripping the Band-Aid and coming off of anything fast. Please don't ever do that. Very, very dangerous. I never give that advice, and I don't want somebody to misunderstand me. You can kill somebody with something like a benzo withdrawal. Did you say most people in general are copic toxic, or most people with ADHD? Sorry, I missed it. So what I said was 68% of people with ADHD have copper toxicity. So it's a very common thing, and that comes because 96% of them are zinc deficient, and zinc and copper run together. I see a lot of copper toxic people. Copper toxicity, anxiety, copper is electroconductive. It's beautiful. We need it to make new arterial cells. It gets very, very high in a woman when she's pregnant. If you cannot load up on copper, double your loads. Like a woman is going to get crazy levels when she's pregnant. If she can't, you will have a spontaneous abortion. You will miscarry because you can't make the fetus little arterioles. You need it to make cardiovascular system, basically look at it like that. So like a normal copper level is about 80 to 100. A nanogram, deciliter, whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I think I have my standard. I get so confused on all those stupid things, but I know it's that 80 to 100. Pregnant woman can be 250, even 300, and it's totally normal. She's not going to have symptoms. Now, copper toxicity, copper is so sensitive. Like our body knows it's so sensitive. Let me tell you. So 80 to 100, let's say I'm walking around at 80 right now. If I get pregnant, I'm a rock 250, let's say. Totally fine. It's what I have to be. If I don't get there, I can't have the baby. The baby, I can't make one. My body is so sensitive to copper that within 24 hours of delivery of the baby, I drop back down to normal. So I'll go back to 80. That's how quickly the body knows it must shed the copper, get it out. It's not ready. It's not time. Almost time. I got to feed my dog. What time? Okay. So what I said was most people I see have more copper toxicity because I deal with anxiety and depression, inattention, psychosis. When a woman cannot clear that copper, we call it copper clearing. If she cannot metabolize that copper out, cannot clear it out after delivery, it's very concomitant with postpartum depression. So if that copper stays high, depression is very, very, very common, even psychosis. So when you see some of these severe horrific cases of women that have done some things, it's because they went psychotic, and that's usually after the second, third, or fourth child because she's been getting copper toxic slowly with every pregnancy, and she's been unable to clear. So suddenly, at the third pregnancy, she, is in severe, postpartum depression. It's because she can't. She has probably a genetic predisposition to not be able to clear the copper very well. He's like a little baby. I don't know what I'm doing. I need my pee-pee. Okay, so I hope I answered that. So I don't see people with low copper. I mean, I just, people talk about it and like, oh, eat more liver to copper. I'm like, you need to eat liver because it's good for you, but not, so I never, ever, ever, ever have I ever prescribed copper supplements. I don't ever see people with low copper. And I would never, ever, ever, ever give copper without a balancing zinc. So there are some things at times you might have a zinc thing, you might have a multi with a little, very micro dose, right? But it should never, I've never seen it isolated alone. It's like, I don't even know if you could buy a supplement like that. It's dangerous. It's like giving iron. Iron is very dangerous to give. Very extreme situations that you should do that. If it's medically, Can you take thyroxine with ADHD meds? Yes. There's a lot of different, I'm assuming you mean like, your thyroid medicine, levothyroxine. Yeah, you can do that. Your thyroid meds should be very first thing in the morning, like super early, when you wake up, like nightstand kind of a thing. Usually about an hour away from anything else, eating or drinking. All right. Let me see. I'm just scrolling through if there were any questions right there. So some of the things people had said here, let me scroll, that I thought was really interesting. Yeah, definitely plant-based is not helping this situation. The brain is an animal fat structure, and it needs that. It needs the B vitamins, the zinc, the copper, or all selenium. All of these things are really abundant in animal foods. I thought this was really interesting. I want to read this. Somebody wrote this, Transformation Health Today. She says, I was blown away when I was following a Facebook forum of physician moms, and one mom, Doc, reached out to the group about her 8-year-old daughter with a new diagnosis of ADHD. So you have a physician who's reaching out to a group of physicians asking for help for her 8-year-old daughter. And it says she was reluctant to start her on meds and was looking for any alternatives. And I'm going to tell you right now, very common. I have a tremendous amount of physicians who see me to bring their children to me so they won't go on meds. They're not having it. They're like, oh yeah, I don't, but you do that neurofeedback and all that stuff you do. Now they don't know as much about the nutrition, so they're surprised when I'm like, can I run? And I explain it, and I'm like, oh, because they are not taught this. They are not taught to think of this. They aren't taught to go, oh yeah, well zinc is required to make GABA, and zinc is required to make dopamine, and if you have too much, don't have enough of that and you have too much copper, then we're not making enough dopamine. Oh, problem, which is can't focus without it. That's the focus factor right there, and the thinking well factor. Can't make any GABA, so that can't calm you down. So now you're super anxious, and anybody who's scared and anxious can't think, and nobody can. Oh yeah, and then because now I have copper went so high, it force converts dopamine over to feel like, oh shit, now we got problem. They don't know this. They don't know to think this way. So I have to talk them into this part, but then they're open to it. They get down with it. They're like, oh shit, okay, because they like black and white tests. They like to test, and here's your pre, here's your treatment, here's your post. A lot of it I do just to convince people, because I'm like, you see what I'm saying? They're like, oh, I didn't know. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Now you know. Like, here we go. Let's do it. I've convinced you. I'm not totally crazy with my tinfoil hat and my pyramid on my head. I satisfied your left brain. Now let's satisfy my right brain, because your right brain is 6 times faster than your left brain anyway. Yet we're a left brain dominant world where everything is slower and it's stuck with words. Hate to tell you, but my right brain picks it all up in symbols and images a whole lot faster. 6 times a second. Anyway, so they come to me for neurofeedback. So anyway, I'm going to finish reading. Happens all the time. They don't want their kids on this. They don't. She goes, she was absolutely decimated and berated for even entertaining the idea that there would be a solution other than meds to treat her daughter. A couple of mom docs advised her to have her check zinc and vitamin D levels, among other micronutrients. Those docs were also hammered. Like, fascinating, right? When a doctor knows something more and they mention it, they're the ones that get attacked. So functional docs do take a lot of shit, actually, from other physicians. People like me, they look down on us, and we're scum of the earth to them anyway, so I don't really care. So somebody said this: my son was diagnosed 3 years ago with mild ADHD. His condition has improved to where it is almost non-existent. Coincidence that I've been giving him higher doses of zinc, copper daily with the pandemic over the past year. Now, that makes me nervous about the copper part. I would want to know, I rarely give a zinc copper combination. I have from time to time based on each case, but that's not normally the way I do things. So I'd want labs here, to be honest, to give you an idea. And somebody says, would love more info on how to dose a child, especially a young child, for the possible deficiency. Especially young, we need labs. I would not be dosing. Now, there are a few exceptions to this. This is why I think kids are good to have multis. I don't like multis in general. It's tough, but I got 2 that I like that are good, and for kids and people to cover the kind of bases. And I've seen just that, because they're brain-based multis. So they're very specific in micronutrients, very specific for minerals, they're very specific for brain performance, and herbs and nootropics for the brain. That's what this is all designed for. One's in a capsule form, one's in a liquid form. I have different needs, and things are both really good. I do sell both on my website. The one is from True Hope, Empower. I have it right here. It's what my son takes, actually, when I can get him to do it. Teenagers are a big pain in the butt. And the other one is the Primology, which is the liquid. So I feel like the Primology is actually a superior product, but I can't always get people to drink the multi. Drink something. It's a little sweet. Most adults love it. Some kids don't. So I'm a hit or miss with that one. I think it's stronger. I think I get better results with it. But so often just even the right brain-based multi can clear up a lot of this, because these kids are just starving. Their guts are so inflamed, they're not absorbing enough from nutrition, and they're just eating shit. Cupcakes and mac and cheese and pizza. There's just not enough amino acids, not enough proteins, not enough B vitamins, not enough zinc. So if I can cover the bases, they probably are copper deficient, to be honest, but But you have to know what you're doing. You have to understand zinc makes people nauseous, B6 makes people nauseous, P5P can be nauseous. You got to do it the right way, know what's with food, know what's without food, get the right forms. And then somebody said, my son has increased copper, where do I start? More red meat? I'm like, no. You start with exactly the blood test. You need to know. So just serum copper isn't just where you're at. You have to look at ceruloplasmin, that protein I talked about. You might have what looks like normal copper in your blood, but you don't have any of the protein to carry it around, so you have really high free copper. So we have to do calculations to know, well, what's there, and you might go, it might be high looking, but look how much ceruloplasmin. There's nothing to chelate. You don't need to treat it at all. It's not the problem. So you really have to kind of know what you're doing. I don't like people, it's kind of fascinating, all these parents who are saying things. I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing this yourself. You should be working with somebody. But places, the blood, like the tests I like, so I use DHA labs, and you can self-order some of these. I'm not sure you would know what to do with it. I mean, I don't know why you would do it and not have any idea how to treat it. Like, you need somebody who knows how to treat it. But I use the Walsh panels, the metabolic panels. So it would be a metabolic panel which has like serum, zinc, histamine, ceruloplasmin, pyrroles, which is a urine test. So most is blood, is urine test. There's a couple, I might get a D3, a TSH, a couple other factors. I might have a whole big thing where I need to see homocysteine. And then if I see from the histamine something that needs more methylation, I'll run doctor's data, the methylation panel, the SAM-SAW relationship. But you don't need to run that if you're an over-methylator. See, some of these tests are not valid for certain conditions and certain things. So I don't just run labs to run them. If I look and I say, oh, I have a histamine of 25, there's no point in running another $350 test because all the data's false. It'll all be wrong. So when I see people come in with like all these labs, they go, oh, they just run this every time. I'm like, really? I'm like, but you don't know if you need it. It's kind of a waste of money. I also like, so I like Genomind is what I run. I use DHA labs for the Walsh panel, metabolic panel. Whole blood histamine is one of my favorite labs. It gives you a nice snapshot. Homocysteine, you have to have homocysteine before you even look at methylation. People will just look at one thing and I'm like, I can't believe you're taking all this stuff, you're making it worse. And they have a very hard time when I say that. They're very addicted to taking all their pills. I'm like, yeah, but you're making this worse. You're demethylating yourself. So I don't understand why you're taking this much folate. Like, you're making it worse. Like, and they say, oh, but someone told me. I said, well, do you feel better? They go, no. I'm like, well, maybe you might want to try my plan because they're wrong. Okay. All right, well, I think I talked a lot. My dog is hungry. If there's anything that, I'm scrolling to see if anybody typed anything. I'm going to tap out. I'm going to look up this Dan Purser. I don't know who this is. Maybe he's my people. So Abram Hoffer, look him up, watch some of his YouTubes. He's a man we should all know. He started with molecular psychiatry. Everybody doing this is doing it because of him. So what kind of panel should you ask your doctor to run? Unless they do this, they won't run it. They won't know what to run. They have no idea. So I just told, it's DHA labs. They're very specific labs that only this lab does. Only one place will draw a whole blood histamine. Everybody's like, what are you talking? Why would I run that? They don't know what it is. They won't know what a cryptopyrrole test is. They have no idea. Medicine doesn't even want to acknowledge that thing's existing. Like, half neurologists don't want to acknowledge pandas. People didn't want to acknowledge autism. They didn't want to acknowledge fibromyalgia. They don't want to acknowledge all kind mold illness, breast implant illness. That's not recognized. That doesn't exist. Those women are crazy. As far as they're fucking nuts. Send them to therapy. They just need to, they're making it up. That's how medicine gaslights people, by the way. So your doctor will not know what to run. There's no point in having them run something they don't know what to do with it anyway. They're clueless. They have no training. You need to find somebody who knows what they're doing. Period. So you can go to, I'm available, and there's also go to walshinstitute.org. That's in the note. I gave the book, and you go to there, like, look at their list of practitioners, find somebody they're trained. I cannot go on their website. I talked to them years ago about it. They won't break their policy. They want only physicians. They want to become accepted by Rockefeller Medicine. They're trying to go after psychiatrists and teach psychiatrists that they should test. That's such a hard battle. They basically said, we cannot let any chiropractors, acupuncturists, holistic, anybody, because you're seen as quacks to medical doctors, and we can't risk it. But we'll let you train. We can't certify you or put you on the website. I said, okay. No problem. So you won't see my name there. You won't ever see my name there. I respect his decision, what William Walsh is doing. So they've trained me, and I found other physicians that just trained me. Because a lot of them know that, like, you might as well learn how to do it, because we have a much harder time teaching psychiatrists that they should be testing. They just don't believe it. We can't get them on board. So walshinstitute.org, your primary care, you are wasting your time. They won't know what to do with it anyway. Absolutely clueless. You're going to end up having to see one of us anyway. So you might as well start that process. Okay? Thoughts on the so-called foggy brain. So long haul C, my thoughts are it's the same damn thing we've been seeing forever, right? With all those things I just said. Myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, PANDAS. It's nothing. It's called inflammation, high histamine. Things have infiltrated and poisoned the brain. The chemo brain does it. So I have a post in there when I rattled off things that should be used. BPC 157, TB4 frag, LDN, CBD. You have to go over the inflammation. Now, overall, I think this is all radioactive poisoning, radiation poisoning. So we're looking at a totally different thing here than we're used to, by the way. But it's causing massive inflammation and poisoning and killing of cells. So when you start killing a bunch of cells, the body has to get it out. That's causing the massive inflammation of toxic material in a place at a large load that it shouldn't be. So you have to get that out. You have to improve the systems to get all the poison out, detox it. Number one in the brain is amazing sleep. Get the glial cells activation, blue light blocking, high melatonin. Wicked high. You need so much melatonin to do this. So sleep is everything. But drug-wise, LDN, methylene blue, BPC 157, TB4 frag are peptides, CBD, and is super anti-inflammatory. There's some other things, but that should be it's just called brain poisoning. They're poisoned. If you kill you kill any amount of cells too fast. What does chemo and radiation do to a body? It kills things. You killing things, and that's what makes a person so sick, is all the die-off and toxic particles. And if you vibrate cells like this with sound or light or frequencies, you can destroy them. We know this. We use these procedures in medicine already. You're just getting it from a different source now. So yeah. So it can be healed, but you have to go. Pookie. My dog, so his name is Pookie. His name is Axel. He is diabetic, actually. So this is time to eat. So he's on a falaki. Pancreatitis. He ate something poisonous. It blew up his pancreas. He's insulin dependent. So he eats every 12 hours like clockwork. So yes, his system, his Greenland was rising up like, look, I know it's time to eat. So can you get on with it? But I have to be, so it usually starts about an hour before. And yeah, I do need to take him in for a glucose check. I think lately he's making me up a lot. So, and peeing a lot. So I'm like, oh, Pookie, I think we have to maybe up his insulin. He's on 5 units. Yeah, he's a Pookie. Yeah. So I do need to feed him. I hope he's not hypoglycemic, but, he's going to eat. Doesn't know about the dosing, I don't know, Linz. I'm sorry, but that probably follows up to something you said. Where from there? A little bit. Hang on, the deletion. She doesn't even know about the copper. Oh, not everybody's trained in this. This is like I said. So functional medicine's this big. Orthomolecular psychiatry is right here. It's not a lot of people doing it. Over here, very tiny. You don't make a lot of money doing this, by the way. If we wanted to, we'd be over here with the people doing stem cells and exosomes and shit. They make the money. Over here, it's a lot of work and it's not a lot of money. I mean, that whole panel, a blood test is like $300. It's not bad. Now, again, insurance pays for nothing. But it's out of pocket. That's not bad. It's not like some of these other tests people tell, you know, like a Lyme test, $3,000. Crazy. Ridiculous. You need to find a better psychiatrist. You need to find a better doctor essential times. Period. Go to the Walsh Institute. Walsh Institute, just put that in. Walsh Institute Psychiatry, Walsh Institute Brain Health. I think it's .org. Find a better doctor. Period. Fire your doctor. That's it. Fire them. Done and done. Oh yeah, so somebody had a General Mind, love it. They're amazing. They're up their game. The last time I had a webinar with them, I was like, wait, you're doing like some health optimization now? I was a little surprised that I thought the price was a little bit like, I need you to, I guess a lot of money for people to do. So without me knowing how good the peak performance part is, I'm hesitant. I always like to be like, could you give me 5 tests really cheap? I like to at least test things out. But Genomind is an amazing company. I've looked at I've used a lot of genetic testing. I like them. What kind of brain images? SPECT scan? No, I'm not a SPECT scan fan, because here's the thing with SPECT scan. So we have radioactive isotopes you have to add in. So we have pain and we have radiation going into the system. You have to have a shot. You got to have something injected, and it's radioactive. And the SPECT scans are not functional. You can't do anything with them. So what they do, so there's an Amen clinic here in Atlanta, and I beat them for the best mental health practice in Atlanta in People's Choice Award, because they don't do anything. So they do a SPECT scan, and I'm like, and all they say is, oh, look, you have this, you're going to need neurofeedback. And then they send it to me. And I go, well, I can't do anything with that. I have to do a QEEG. So just get a QEEG. So get a brain map with doing electrical activity, because a SPECT scan is just, it's pretty. Oh, look how cool it looks. And you can't do any therapy from it. You can't do anything with it. It'll give you an idea, and so it always correlates with a Q, though. So I've seen 100 of them at least, people coming from the Amen clinic, right, with all their big bullshit. Okay, very well done, very good information. It's accurate, but I still have to do a new brain. I have to do an actual functional brain image that I'm actually going to use in real life with you. And so the QEEGs, or recording electrical activity EEGs, totally non-invasive, no radiation. When they recommended, I thought my son might have a brain tumor at one point, Wilson's disease or brain tumor. Oh, let's do the SPECT scan. I'm like, really? So I was like, I'd rather CT scan or MRI. It's less invasive, less damaging, and I can just cue him. And my son's, I do QEEGs for a living. I do neurofeedback. I'm board certified in it, so he's been mapped. Every staff member had to test out on my son. That was their final exam. I'm like, go in there, do another one. I'm like, he's ready for you. If you can brain map him, I'll hire you. Yeah. So yeah, SPECT scan. So they're good for. They always would validate. I'd be like, you'd see, oh, ADHD subtype, Ring of Fire. Yep, I agree. Brain is on fire, but I don't need a SPECT scan to see it. I can see that on the Q. Like, yep, super inflamed. And if you eat sugar and alcohol, it's like pouring gasoline. You give that person a Ritalin, don't give them a stimulant. You're making everything worse. Gasoline on the fire. There are many different subtypes of ADHD, and some Ritalin will give results for. I still don't think it's the right choice, but you will see benefit. Others, it will make them worse. You can see that on a SPECT. You can see it on a QEEG. So SPECT's not my favorite by any means. I'm not sure why. I think Amen does it because he makes more money on them. He's about money. Doesn't mean he's not smart, but a lot of money going on there. No, they don't run any labs. Psychiatrists, they're not trained to run any labs. They really resist it, to the point they think you're nuts if you suggest it. It's odd. they like Genomind and the Walsh Institute, they have to fight them. You have to break up like their meta paradigm to even think they should run labs. They think it's like you're an idiot for suggesting it to them. Like it's nuts to them. They honestly think you must have a Ritalin serum deficiency. I'm surprised they don't call it methamphetamine deficiency syndrome at this point. I'm like, I don't think that's really supposed to be the situation. Nobody has a Zoloft deficiency or a Paxil deficiency or a Ritalin deficiency. No, that's not what's happening. But that's what they think. So, okay, I think that's it. Yeah, same. And I'm kind of, like I said, I don't think I'm not a huge, fan. And then the neurofeedback I've seen in the Amen clinics is terrible. I would not go get it there. They're horrible. They're outsourcing it. They used to just refer it out to people who are really good at it. Now they brought people in-house. It's not so good. It's not so bueno. I'd be real careful. Okay? But that's my 2 cents. I didn't radiate my son, but you do what you want to do. How do you lower copper levels? There's a number of ways. I mean, we have to couple in, and we need to make ceruloplasmin. Is the issue you don't have enough ceruloplasmin, and we have to give you nutrients so you can make that protein, or do you have zinc deficiency? Zinc is always involved. There's going to be some zinc coming in there. There might be methionine, there might be selenium, there might be binders. I don't know what you have to figure out why, and then you have to address it. And if you do it too fast, it can be very bad. You can make yourself really, really uncomfortable. People can be aggressive, angry, violent, panicky, explosive. It can be real bad if you don't do this right. So just, yeah, copper's probably high if your son has low zinc. They always should be seen together in relationships. They should never be an isolated test. Never, ever, ever. It makes no sense to do it that way. You're missing things. It's like wearing a left shoe but not wearing a right. Doesn't make any sense to me. Your doctor's thought, okay, good. I'm happy to always talk to doctors and just point them where to get trained. I mean, and the best trainings, I think, are when doctors get together and mastermind with each other, and you put your egos at the door and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's like, I see this, I can't get this better. I'm confused at this. If you can't have doctors able to do that with each other, you're screwed. And sometimes apparently there's some that they seem to know everything and they never seem to need to see help. They know everything, and everybody else is an idiot. The way they talk. I'm like, oh, okay. The best doctors I know are the ones like, do you know this? I'm like, no, dude. I don't. Like, what do you do for that? Have you tried this? Do you use MSM for that? Have you tried DMSO, or what's going on with it? What do you think about LDN for this? Have you seen any patients? I just called one the other day. So, what do you think about ketamine for this? He's a ketamine doctor. He's one of my patients, as a matter of fact. Psychiatrists fucking see me. They pay me. So now he's turned himself into a ketamine doctor. I got him out of the bullshit of what he was doing. So now I'm like, dude. I got a case, and what about this? And what do you think? I'm not a ketamine expert, but I know how to leverage it in practice. And I have no problem sending somebody to get what they need. So I was like, do you have experience with this? Can you find me a doctor in this city? Do you have a friend here? Because I got a patient somewhere that I need to get him. Right? That's how we should be. But not everybody can put their ego at the door, sadly. All right. What about nootropics? I use tons of nootropics for kids and adults. What I talked about, that Primology has Bacopa Moneri, which is one of my favorite for ADHD and anxiety and deplaquing the brain for Alzheimer's. So that's amazing. I like to start with nutrients first. I like to get basic balance and enough nutrients in, and any toxicities taken before I bring in nootropics, though, because I don't want to cover up a Band-Aid, right? But giving them a hit with, oh, look, they took qualiamide, which I have sitting in my house. I can show you, I have it. But, that's just covering up a symptom the way Ritalin does. I don't want to do that. I don't want to say, oh, you got to take trazodone to calm down because you don't have any self-regulation calming down systems. We want to, I don't even want people calming down with CBD. I want them to be able to regulate and it just be a part of the regulation normal, like breathing, right? So I absolutely tons of nootropics for children. Absolutely. I typically want to, but I want to start usually with just basic nutrients. I go into things like bacoba. I do use ashwagandha. I use CBD. I don't consider that a nootropic. Peptides, absolutely. I use BPC and TB4-FRAG. My son takes them right now, you know. Oh, Pookie, okay. My dog takes BPC too. Yeah, Pookie. Most expensive dog in the world. Yeah, I went to a shelter, got a free dog. Not so much. Not so much. Yeah, Pookie. Say hi to people. I'm going to feed my dog now. But those are the things I would stack in a program, Cairo, whatever the hell. Like I would stack it. Like, okay, we're going to start here, then we start here, then we start here, then we start here. And then what they're, you know, left with, right? I also love peptide. I love C-Lank. That's a really good one for kids and adults with ADHD and anxiety. I just got mine. That takes weeks to get, though. Nasal. So... But you can't just start going to C-Lank if you don't have basic nutrition. You know what I mean? If they're cholesterol, low D, low zinc, high copper. Okay, Pookie, let's eat. I gotta go, guys. That's enough, I guess. Yeah, Primology's some good shit, you guys. I've been really impressed with that multi. Oh God. Okay, I'm feeding you. Is it necessary to get diagnosed from a psych, or can we go directly? For what? You can come to me. Just send me a message or an email. Oh, I have a big special, you guys. Oh, yeah. I hit 30,000. Thank you. So they did. The guys were like, "You want to do something?" I was like, "Oh, right. What do you want to do?" They said, "Well, we're thinking 30% off." I was like, "Oh, yeah, do 30% off." So new patients, 30% off. Peptide consults, pick my brain, new patient. I even did. And then all my courses are only $30. Till like Thursday, for like 3 days. Okay, so I forgot about that. So yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, JMF, what you need, but send a message or an email, desk@drrimka.com. My website is just my name, drrimka.com, and you can go there and message the boys and stuff like that. It's much harder in the DMs. DMs do not get priority. I do run a business and patients, and so the email and the phone, they do get priority. It's a little bit much for me to handle. Okay, he's done with my bullshit. These are the glasses. These are EMR Tech. They're on my website as well. They block blue and green. So please go to my website. So I have all the things that you see me do, practically. Almost all of them are for sale. This is for sale. But I have all the gadgets and all the things. And I have it broken down into skin, and people want to know what I put on my skin. It's on there. My makeup, my hair, my skincare, my glasses. I have like 4 or 5 blue blocking options. These are the EMR Tech. They are dope. You know this shit is dope. 24 karat gold. Makes me feel rich. Plated. You gotta do Rockin' Grandma. Whoever Rockin' Grandma is, you better follow me. I'm gonna follow you. Send me a message, Rockin' Grandma. Love it. All right, I'm still looking for orthomolecular psychiatry. Oh, so if you look up orthomolecular psychiatry, you will find a very hard. You can find those websites, but tough to find because everyone's hidden. Most of us are like hidden. There's no like great training for it. When Hoffer died, we were all kind of left lost. Like Papa died, and everybody else that does this kind of stuff, you're not real looking for attention. Let me tell you, the people who do the stuff you don't want attention because they don't like us. The AMA doesn't like us. The FDA doesn't like us. Nobody likes us. They don't want us getting you off the drugs. They don't want it. And the message that you can heal from psychiatric illnesses is like madness to them. That's blasphemous. To them, this is it. You have it for life. You're never going to get better. So orthomolecular psychiatry is very hard to find. The Pfeiffer Institute in Texas is one. Walsh Institute in Chicago. There's an amazing rehab place in New York. I've sent patients there where we've needed inpatient, and they're going to do IV nutrient therapy and all kinds of stuff. Very different than a regular kind of residential place. So try Walsh Institute, but you can try orthomolecular psychiatry. Tough. The websites are not real regulated. It's like people are self-putting themselves on there, and no one's running it. There's no money behind this. And most people who do this are, again, they're busy just from referral. They're not looking for, everyone's busy. We're busy. Everyone's packed. There's not enough people doing it, to be honest. Okay, so we'll go to the Walsh Institute. You'll have the better luck there. Because long haul C vascular misdiagnosed with AIDS because of lack of proper tests. Yeah. Pookie! Okay, I gotta feed my dog. I do have to go. So, alpha lipoic acid is great, but you gotta be careful with that. It can detox you really strong, and you can have some really bad herx kickback. So I use alpha lipoic acid, but I use it in a very pulsed rhythm. You should just take it. You should do things in a way that's systematic and it pulses. You have to have, detoxification has to start with, there's phases, right? Downstream with the liver, the kidney, the colon, and the skin and the lungs, right? The breath, all these basic things, sweating and breathing, blah, blah. Then you get deeper, get the organ systems working. You can't do shit if your liver's not cleaning, you guys. I mean, you're not pulling anything out of your brain if your liver, your kidneys, and your colon don't work. It doesn't work. You just dump more crap and it circulates and damages you more. It doesn't work. So then by the time it takes to get up into the cell, to get alpha lipoic acid in the cell, you have to create concentration gradients so things go from high to low concentration to get out and stay out and get out. You have to know how you're doing this. Please work with a clinician. I don't know how else to say it, okay? Just taking stuff is tough. And people can make things a lot worse. Okay, I want to answer all your questions. I hate that I have to go. I'm also here from Kelly Hogan. Oh, Kelly Hogan. Yeah, tell her to go look at my stories. I just did a little love poem to Kelly Hogan based on the things she did. We met this weekend. So some of this silliness is because of Kelly. Okay. All right, guys. I adore you. Thank you for sticking in here to learn new stuff. This will be recorded and on there. Let me see if there's anything else that really, my poor dog, I gotta feed him. I have gone past this time. It'll be okay. It'll be there. Unless there's a crazy mistake, I will post it. Thank you, everybody. Take advantage of my sale, the 30,000. Look at the next post, but it's 30% off some of the things. And a way you can support me if you like these free things, the lives. I try to put out as much content as I can. The YouTubes, we're putting out every Wednesday and Friday. I've restarted blogging. That'll be, I think, coming out on Wednesday, a new one. So, because I do miss writing. I used to do a ton of it. I started a newsletter and stuff. I miss it. And doing so much video, I don't write as much anymore, and I don't like that. I want to make sure I access that part of my brain. So, my dog is like, I'm sick of your bullshit. Enough already. But you can also, the store, so by doing that, by going to the store and just buying just the stuff you maybe buy, but using my link, I get a small, an affiliate commission, you get a discount code. So it's a way you can help me keep supporting this. So I have a little bit more free time to do some more free stuff. Okay, goodbye, everybody. I gotta feed my dog. I adore you. Have a beautiful night.